Today we're shaking things up and we're going to do something a little bit different than usual. Today we're covering 2 days of history, the 22nd and the 23rd. We're continuing on from where we left off with yesterday's episode about the first part of the 22nd. Welcome to Salem Witch Trials Daily. I'm Josh Hutchinson.
This is Sarah Jack. We begin by continuing on from yesterday. On Friday, April 22nd, 1692, Deliverance Hobbs, Abigail's mother, was examined. The magistrates brought her in sneakily without telling the afflicted who she was. They wanted to see if any of these Salem villagers recognized that woman from Topsfield.
Ann Putnam Jr. was the only afflicted person to state Deliverance's name. The others got quiet when asked and only began to accuse Deliverance after Ann said who she was.
After Deliverance had denied being a witch several times, Judge Hathorne said, "It is said you were afflicted. How came that about?"
Deliverance said she had seen strange sights. Like last Sunday, she saw a great many birds, cats, and dogs at the meeting house, and she heard a voice say, "Come away."
Since then, she had seen the shapes of several persons, but they hadn't said anything. Neither had the birds.
She reported that the people she saw were Sarah Wilds, who was also examined today, and get this, Mercy Lewis, the afflicted girl. But somehow this latter accusation against Mercy Lewis slipped under the radar, and Mercy was never seriously considered as a witch. Apparently, only Sarah Wilds had hurt Deliverance anyway. Mercy hadn't hurt her.
Abigail Williams and Ann Putnam Jr. claimed that they could see Deliverance on the beam above, and not at the bar where she actually stood for everyone else to see.
After further pressure from Hathorne, Deliverance squeezed out a confession. She had yielded only very lately, just the night before last, as a matter of fact. Sarah Wilds had brought the devil's book to her, and she had signed it with pen and ink.
Deliverance admitted to afflicting others by putting pins and images of them. Sarah Wilds and Sarah Osborne supplied the images.
One image was of John Nichols' child, who Deliverance did afflict. Deliverance did not keep the images, though. The other witches took them away.
When asked if there was a man with the witches, Deliverance suddenly remembered that, yes, indeed, there was a tall man with a high-crowned hat.
During Deliverance's confession, the afflicted people were free from fits.
After the examination, the magistrates asked Deliverance if she had been hurt yesterday. She said she'd felt something like a prick in her right side, which was very sore. She said this happened while she was in a trance, but somehow she felt it.
The magistrates made some women inspect Deliverance's side and found it to be pricked just like she'd said, and corresponding to where Benjamin Hutchinson's rapier was said to have hit her yesterday.
Remember that? He and Abigail in the tavern, and Deliverance crawling on the table?
On guard.
In addition, she told the magistrates that after she'd felt the prick yesterday, she had something like dust in her left eye. The afflicted said that Benjamin Hutchinson had touched her eye with his rapier. The afflicted, who I guess were there for this too, said there was a mark by her eye, and the marshal agreed.
And the magistrates sent Deliverance to jail.
Sarah Wilds' examination was pretty quick. She was brought in, and the afflicted fell into their usual fits. Then they said Sarah was up on the beam too.
Apparently, afflicted woman Sarah Bibber had never seen Sarah Wilds before, but now she saw her on the beam too, and she fell into a fit again.
Sarah Wilds denied the charges of witchcraft against her. Hathorne blamed her for causing Deliverance Hobbs to sign the book the night before last.
Sarah denied ever seeing the devil's book in her life and stated that she had never seen her accusers before.
Some in the court charged Sarah with hurting John Herrick's mother. Sarah denied it.
Captain Howe related some information which supposedly confirmed that she had done it.
The magistrates ordered Sarah Wilds to be taken away to jail.
Now, Deliverance Hobbs' husband, William, was examined after Sarah Wilds. Several afflicted said William had hurt them, but Sarah Bibber said he hadn't hurt her.
William said, I can speak in the presence of God safely, as I must look to give an account another day, that I am as clear as a newborn babe.
Now the afflicted engaged in some deception. Abigail Williams said that William Hobbs's specter was going to Mercy Lewis. Soon after, Mercy was seized with the fit. Then Abigail did the same thing with Mary Walcott, and she too fell into a fit.
William continued to deny he had anything to do with the fits of the afflicted.
Hathorne switched up his line of questioning. He asked William when he last attended a public religious meeting.
Not a pretty while, William admitted. He said it was because he had a distemper he hadn't told anyone about.
So he's sick and he's keeping it to himself. Asked, what is the reason you go away when there is any reading of the scripture in your house?
William denied that.
Hathorne later said, if you put away God's ordinances, no wonder that the devil prevails with you to keep his counsel. And Hathorne said, God requires outward worship. Then he said, have you not given the devil advantage against you thereby?
To this, William was silent a considerable while. Finally, he said, yes.
William claimed he didn't know what made the afflicted people sick.
Ann Putnam Jr. said that William Hobbs told her that if his wife would not write in the book, he would kill her.
William denied saying anything of the sort.
The magistrate sent William to jail.
And Ann Putnam Jr. was deposed against Sarah Wilds on the 22nd and testified that Sarah had been afflicting her since the beginning of March. But today, Sarah most grievously tortured Ann during her examination. She also afflicted Mary Walcott, Mercy Lewis, and Abigail Williams.
Mary Walcott testified against Sarah Wilds, saying that Sarah began tormenting her at the beginning of April, but got her real good today during her examination. Whenever Sarah looked upon Mary, she was struck down and almost choked to death.
Records are missing for several of today's examinations. There were 9 suspects. We've only covered a few examinations, so some are missing. But after all the hearings were held today, the magistrates wrote up a minimus instructing the Salem jailkeeper to take 8 suspects into his custody. Nehemiah Abbott Jr. was the only one who didn't go. And now we'd like to talk about Saturday, April 23rd, 1692.
Before the examinations began on the 22nd, the witches supposedly had a meeting in the pasture by the minister Samuel Parris's house.
Deliverance Hobbs confessed as much when she was questioned in jail on Saturday, April 23rd.
Deliverance said that Sarah Wilds called her to the meeting on the pasture. The Proctors were there, and so were Rebecca Nurse, the Coreys, Bridget Bishop, Sarah Osborne, Sarah Good, and Sarah Wilds.
And George Burroughs was their preacher. He told the witches to bewitch everyone in Salem Village, which had about 500 to 550 people at the time. But he told them to do the afflicting gradually and not all at once.
At the time he gave his speech, Reverend Burroughs administered the sacrament. With the aid of Rebecca Nurse and Sarah Wilds, who handed out red bread and red wine like blood.
A man in a long-crowned white hat sat beside George Burroughs at a table.
Deliverance Hobbs claimed she didn't eat or drink the sacrament, but everyone else did, and they got big mad at her for refusing the devil's communion.
Deliverance saw Abigail Williams run out of the house to speak with the witches, but Deliverance's eyes went dark and she couldn't see who Abigail spoke to.
According to Deliverance, Sarah Wilds tempted her to sign the devil's book by promising her fine clothes and relief from further bewitchment.
The magistrates ordered Abigail Hobbs brought in, the stepdaughter. She had a dreadful fit, and stepmom Deliverance said that Giles Corey and the unnamed gentlewoman from Boston were striving to break her stepdaughter's neck.
Other witnesses provide more details on the April 22nd Witches' Sabbath in upcoming testimony over the coming weeks and months. We're going to keep hearing about the Sabbath at Mr. Parris's house. We'll cover that testimony as it comes along.
And it literally keeps coming for months. And in a May 18th deposition, Ann Putnam Jr. will claim that the apparition of John Willard came to her on April 23rd, and Ann was very sorry to see him so, that one that had helped to tend her was come to afflict her, and she bid him let her alone, and she would not complain of him. So if he just didn't hurt her, she wasn't going to spill the beans.